Hi, Dr. Rob.
Hey, Dr.
I'm
Tammy.
I'm putting the question in um, the answered so you can see it. But please,
Good.
for those of you joining, add more questions. I found out 3 years ago that my husband was acting out for 7 years when he was traveling to New York City and other places Monday through Friday. He had a female roommate with benefits, porn, and over 20 serial affairs via Ashley Madison and Craigslist. After D-Day, he was in denial and worked a lame recovery. I thought he was getting better after several therapeutic separations. I was starting to feel safer, but then my three sisters had an intervention with me and shared that he had inappropriately touched
Ooh,
them all at a party one night. I filed for divorce immediately. Since
good.
then, he has immersed himself in full recovery. Recovery is a lifestyle, and he says he wished he had done it years ago. He said he is a changed man, and I see it. If I get back together with him, I will lose my sisters. He says it was a one-time crazy odd night and an isolated incident. Could it be possible that his escalation and acting out was a one-time thing? I've not heard a good explanation from him except that I was not prepared for that night. That's a tough
Um,
one, Dr. Rob.
Not really. I answered it.
Oh, oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. You get my opinion, you get chances to see sex workers. You get chances to have an affair. You get chances, in other words, chances like I can forgive and move forward with this if we find a solid recovery path. And now you seem to be on it and maybe you fell off it. And now we're going to try again or work on it again. But this particular behavior, look at what's on the line. I mean, your family relationships are on the line, and these women who love you came forward and said, "We love you, and we think this made us very uncomfortable." Not one, not two, but all three. I believe that you have to lean into the people who love you and not be seduced by this man's promises. He had his chance, and not only did he blow it, and not only blow it with porn or sex workers, excuse me, I'm not dismissing that, but in this incestuous, awful. So, honest to God, I'm so sorry for you. But I think, Tammy, this person already probably knows the right answer to their question,
Mm,
which is look at it this way. I know all of you spouses, if an addict acts out again, it's going to be very painful, very difficult. You're going to have to make a lot of difficult choices. But this behavior, I think you're going to have to grieve. This is beyond, I made a mistake and I returned to the behavior. And I don't believe, by the way, that he ever said this or revealed this or any of that. So I think we make promises out of desperation when we're really afraid that we have something to lose. And we may really mean those promises, but behavior, let me write this because I think I can't say it more clearly. And I say it to all the guys, behavior have consequences. Behaviors have consequences. And in this case, he loses you. And the sad part is you're going to have to grieve. Now, I'm not your therapist. Let me qualify. I'm not your therapist. I don't know you. I don't know all the circumstances. I'm only reading what you have said. But if someone told me this and I could prove it factually, my response would be I would feel really unsafe. What are you going to do on Thanksgiving? What are you going to do on holidays? What happens if one of your sisters had kids or grandkids? And it's not, this is unmanageable. And addicts create unmanageable situations that sometimes they can recover and sometimes they can't. And Tammy, you know how I think you and I both try so hard because I really believe that couples should have a chance and work hard. And I don't demonize addicts. And I really think, we get to struggle and try to make our way. And, I do believe in forgiveness and healing. And I believe in redemption, which is a word I use a lot. But this is so beyond the pale that I don't have any, from what I read, I don't think I would encourage you to go forward. And I think it's a grief issue for you. But Tammy, I'm completely open to mistakes or overstating, or I want to hand it to you.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I've been, scanning through it again too, and recovery is lifelong. I suppose on some form it's a lifestyle, but it's a lifelong journey. And he wished he'd done it sooner, but he didn't. And he says he is a changed man, and I see it. So I appreciate that you see it. One thing we don't know is the timeline of like how long he's been on this, like, oh, now I finally get it. But yeah, I mean, behaviors do have consequences. Dr. Rob has shared before that, clients come to us and they're on, their third marriage or whatever, and they say, I wouldn't have had to lose my first marriage if I'd gotten the help, so it takes what it takes, unfortunately. But yeah, you losing your three sisters and the whole family drama. I mean, like Dr. Rob said, the Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas, I mean, you I think would be shunned, from the family, and all the connections with the people that have been with you forever. So that would be really tough.
Yeah, and I don't think that these women did this because they don't love you or don't value or want you to have come to harm or miss out on things that are important to you in life. I think they came to you telling, and by the way, this is ancestrous. This is icky. This is offending behavior. This goes beyond just being addicted. I don't mean just being addicted, but this goes into realms that, for example, if this person were to want to come to Seeking Integrity, I really have to question, is this someone who is safe for us, appropriate for us? And this has happened with your sisters. It's happened with other people. And so I guess I wanted to say one other thing, which is, what I want to say is, I'm sorry that you have to grieve. That's what I wanted to say. You have a lot of things to grieve, not only how your sisters were treated, not only him, but how your sisters were treated and how they're going to look at the future and how they're going to look at other men you may be with or date or what. I just feel a lot of grief for you because I feel like you would be ready to accept and move forward. But to me, this is, as it's described, so unforgivable and heinous that I hope he finds healing and forgiveness for himself. And I hope he never does this again. But I would not stay in this relationship. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, well, and it's a good point about, yeah, I don't buy that it was a one-time thing either. I mean, he did it with all three of your sisters,
Right.
bad enough if he did it with one, but I suspect that, this has been, part of his pattern as well. So yeah, I too am really sorry.
And, Tammy, people drink, they get drunk, they take drugs, or in all kinds of situations. But no matter how high I was, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't do this, And by the way, I don't mean to compare it. I'm going to stop in a second to an offense, but there are people that I love, but if they cross a certain boundary with a child or in a really inappropriate situation, no matter how much I love them, no matter how sincere, you just can't look at that person in the same way ever. And yeah, I would hard time looking my sisters in the eye if I were willing to just walk back into this with my fingers crossed. And I'm so sorry. I hate giving that answer,
So the next question, after 3 years of going through porn recovery and betrayal, he often says, why should he make me feel emotionally safe when he tries to talk to me about his feelings? I disregard them. These are about me not giving in on boundaries like Facebook and being part of a band because music is what helps him keep him sober. He's 3 years clean off drugs and often tells me, why can't I see all the work he's done being off drugs and changing his way of living? All this stuff I need to heal doesn't make us equal. If I get everything I want and his needs aren't met, we're supposed to give 50-50 in a relationship, and it's not like that. How do I even respond to that?
Well, Tammy, I don't always ask, but could you break this one down a little bit? Because I think there's a lot going on and it's hard to tell exactly the question for me.
So there's a few pieces of it, but this is somebody who like, this is the, the poor me addict going, look at all the work I've done. And, like, you should be nicer to me. And look, I've been off of drugs. Like, so I finally have been clean and sober, like, like healthy people, for 3 years. Well, that's great. But, we often say that the acting out is the maladaptive coping mechanism. And Dr. Rob has said in part of my language, but, people can still be an asshole, just stopping the behavior is the beginning of the process. It's not the end. And so, like, if I'm sitting there going, look at me, look at all the work I've done, look how great I'm doing, and you should, I'm missing the point. My recovery program is, what do I need to do, to show up in the world in a different way? And it is like, if he's wants to be in a relationship with you, then it's valuing the relationship. It isn't always 50-50. And he's, Dr. Rob talks about out of the doghouse, for men have been caught cheating. Like
Right.
you have to get out of the doghouse. You know, that's not 50-50. It's like, you got to do the lion's share because you're the one that broke all the trust. You've been sitting, not you, the betrayed partner has been, you know, hit hard with betrayal and trauma and everything else. And so it is on the addict to show up in a different way. So then it's probably 90% or 95% the addict showing up. So, but this is what I hear, Dr. Rob, is, you know, I should get to do all of the things that I want to do, and you should get over it. That's what, you know, it's like, you should be making me feel safe, and you should be honoring everything I've done for my recovery. But her question is, you know, how do I respond to this when he's, you know, throwing all this stuff at her?
Well, I want to respond to much sort of a larger picture, which is what he's asking. You know, I would imagine that this kind of acting out as a part of being on the road and being a musician it's a pretty, we've had a number of musicians at Seeking Integrity who fly all over the world and do all of this stuff. It's very difficult. You know, when you're a musician, it automatically attracts, or an actor, people do come up with you, they flirt to you, you have a lot of free time, a lot of unstructured time, you're traveling. It's a setup for acting out. And if I was a spouse, I would have a very hard time feeling comfortable under that set of circumstances. And so I'm not sure what he says he wants and that you should give him, but trust is a two-way street. Trust is 50-50. And this would be let me say it this way. The two greatest contributors to addicts acting out, without question, is number one, unstructured time, alone especially, but unstructured time. And number two, travel. You know, when we think are on our own and nobody's around and we can do what we want, or we have a 3-day weekend and the whole family's gone away and we're sitting there by ourselves, you know, those are times that are extremely vulnerable. And what you're talking about, who's someone who for a living travels a lot and doesn't have structured time. And I find that I understand what he's saying, and I don't know how to answer the specifics for you, but I really feel your fear. And if your 50% is that he gets to do whatever he wants, wherever he wants, and you know, that's not 50%, as Tammy said. So I don't want to take someone's career apart, but I think what I'm reading, you don't have trust back. And without trust, I would not support. And also when is it my turn? When do I get something? And I've been working so hard. It doesn't sound like a person in recovery. It sounds like a kind of narcissistic, whiny, as we saw King Baby, which is I'm in charge of the world, but you know, but I'm just banging my fists on the table and saying me, me, me. So, you know, again, I really want to say we are not in these situations. So I think it's important that I always say that. We don't know your relationship. We don't know what it means for him to be on the road, or we don't know what he's contributed. All we know is what you're saying. And all I can say is I would feel very uncomfortable with the situation as it is if my spouse were asking for more freedom and more kudos. You know, I'll say one other thing I often say to the men I work with, you know, they may go to a 12-step meeting and they get a 6-month chip, you know, get a little chips that says 6 months, and everyone goes, great, wonderful, so fantastic. True, we can cheer for them. And then they go to therapy group and they say, look, I got this 6-month chip, and everybody says, yeah, you're great, good for you, you're doing great. And then they go home to their spouse and they say, look, I got the 6-month chip. And the spouse says, well, that's not much of a big deal considering you cheated on me for 12 years. And so while there are a lot of folks in this person's world who are there to support and give permission and encourage and give lots of freedom around trust, I'm not sure that you are necessarily the person who has to do that. And if by the way, when these guys get home and they don't get the cheer that they want, then they go back to the meeting and they say, oh, my spouse is so mean and they don't support my recovery. And that ain't it. They're just protecting themselves. So again, I don't know the answer, but I appreciate you being wary of both the desire to do what he wants to do and this kind of like, why aren't you giving me credit? You know, why aren't you giving me credit to just be a decent human being? Why aren't you giving me credit to do the things in our home and share laundry and feed, you know, food? We don't need credit to be a good partner. That's just a given. And so I do think in recovery, it's like, well, I'm doing everything right. Well, you should have been doing everything right in the first place. There's nothing huge about that. So anyway, this is another one that makes me uncomfortable. But I can't give you a direct answer. I just say, trust your gut. That's what I think.
I do too. And I was thinking like being part of the band helps me stay sober. I'm like, no, I mean, music might, maybe playing music is, but it, you know, I mean, unless it's a sober it's an all sober band and they're playing in all sober places, and there's no attention, from adoring fans that, would be distracting or problematic. Like it would be hard to imagine a completely safe environment, particularly for somebody who's pushing back so much. And what I don't hear you sharing is him saying, like, I really am interested in being part of a band. Can we talk about this in a way? Is there something that we, that I,
Right,
I will feel good about, but that will help you feel safe? There's none of that. It's
right.
all king baby, like me. I'm working so hard on my recovery, and like, I'm sorry, but that's what it's, the whiny stuff that drives me
Give him.
nuts. It's like, and here you are going like, I've been through the ringer with this guy and I'm still here, and and he's being dismissive of you and your feelings.
Tammy, I want to validate something you just said because I thought of it while you were talking, which is structure. If I was going to come back to you and say, I want to be on the road, what I would come back to you is say, now, can I? Because it makes me happy. I would say, look, each day, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to these meetings on the road. I'm going to tell my sponsor. I will call in the evening when I get back to my room. You can GPS my phone. You'll know where. In other words, this is how I'm going to help you feel safe, rather than why can't I have what I want? And I think that's what Tammy was talking about. I appreciate it because it
Great
really
point.
triggered
Yeah.
me into,
Yeah.
I don't hear the structure that would make me feel trustworthy. So
Yeah. Okay, next question. My husband is doing great recovery and I am too. How can we work on my husband's triggers? He will see other men looking at me and he goes into a negative place. He says, I look back at times, and I assured him I am not aware, nor am I checking anyone out. Where does this come from and how can I help him? I have never been unfaithful, love my husband, and I am committed to our relationship. We want to address these issues in the best way possible.
can you start with that? Because I was looking on another one, and honestly, I got a little bit distracted.
Okay, so to me, it sounds like this is a betrayed partner. And if I'm wrong, please, correct me. But it sounds like this is a betrayed partner. Both of them are doing the work, but the addict husband, I feel like, is going to the place where it is. It is. This is what I always would do, and so therefore, I'm hyper aware of what could be going on. So you're being healthy and normal and just not paying attention to any of, I mean, somebody's attention on you is not about you. What you do with it would be, but this feels like, if I'm right, if this is the addict partner, it's not about you helping him with his triggers, other than being in your integrity and not, not flirting or something like that. But it would be something for him to talk to his sponsor and therapist about, what is the fear with that? Is there, an abandonment wound, or what's coming up, that's causing him to react to that, or to be scanning the audience looking for, for these hidden messages or something. And maybe it's like just being more intentional about having a conversation with you, and paying attention to you when the two of you are out, and not be looking out and about. So what are your thoughts, Dr. Rob?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that. Let me just pull the question back up, which is, hold on a second. So I want to address the part about you're being accused with the jealousy. That really, I find that that doesn't happen that often, but when it does, I find it very concerning, which is, when we have this thing called projection as a therapist. It's a complicated word for meaning. Let's say I'm really angry, but I look at you and say, oh, you must be angry at me. Or I'm feeling really sad, and for whatever reason, I can't take it in. So I look at you and I say, you seem really sad. It's a psychological function. It's not a bad thing. It's a useful defense, if you will. I'm getting a little psychological, but I want to mention it. So if someone looks at me and they say, I think you're fooling around with other people, I feel incredibly jealous, I'm worried, then I wonder what they're doing. Because I wonder if they're projecting onto you their own discomfort of what they're doing, and their own concerns about themselves, and being sort of afraid about you rather than owning their own stuff. So the part that makes me, well, two things. Number one, you're not, as Tammy said, you're not involved with working on your husband's triggers. Your husband triggers are his problem. And if you feel uncomfortable, you can tell him and then needs to go work on them. But we never want to turn a spouse into a parole officer. We never want to turn a spouse into a sponsor. You can say, I feel uncomfortable this, and I hope you go work on it. And then it's his job or her job to go work on it. But this whole idea of, by the way, I feel sad for you to be accused of being unfaithful, for you to be accused of being unfaithful and question yourself when you're the one who's been cheated on, I think is at best insulting and at worst scary. So there's some psychological issue, let me put it very plainly, that's going on for him. And to me, I would take this to couples therapy. This is an issue where I think the two of you could sit down and you could say, look, why do you keep accusing me of this? And what is going on with you? And, it's not my job to convince you. It's your job to convince me. And there's something not right about this. And it's either with his thinking or his actions or maybe some underlying problems he has. But this particular thing feels like a psychological issue. The first part is, working on his trigger is not your responsibility. Second part about you're being accused of doing things and his jealousy, and something just ain't right about that. And it feels more underlying than simply addiction stuff. So I would go to couples, and that way the two of you can talk about it together.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
my feedback.
and I think have a plan for when we're out and about, like having that conversation with a couples therapist could be really helpful too. So, okay, the next question. I recently found another burner phone. I had avoided sex with my SA partner for months, but engaged with sex with him a few days before I found it. We've been doing this for years. I was already broken. I know you don't see this as rape, yet I feel so incredibly violated. We both know I wouldn't have consented if I knew he was still acting out. At what point does it become sexual assault?
Well, I want to take a step back, and I actually wrote this on, Tammy, I communicate with all, that I train most of the CSATs in the country.
Yes.
And so we have a listserv and we communicate with each other, and questions come up about these kinds of issues. And I actually wrote a post today because I was just thinking we don't talk about this enough, which is STDs. I don't know where he's been. I don't know what he's done, but the first thing that comes up on my mind, even more than the whole relationship thing, is, have you had sex with someone who's having sex with other people? Have you had sex with someone who has left you vulnerable? Tammy, when COVID was going on and guys were going out, and when we weren't even feeling comfortable without gloves on to go to the grocery store, and guys were going out and seeing sex workers or partner or affair partners. They say, well, I know them pretty well. Nothing will happen. I don't think that someone who is acting out like this is really thinking about your health and your welfare. And it's often true just to say that men can get some kind of infection or virus, and a woman, it doesn't show on us. We carry it in our bodies, but it can cause severe problems in women. So this is the most humiliating, embarrassing, uncomfortable thing. But the first thing I want to say to you is, please go get tested. And number two, don't have sex with him right now until you understand what's really happening. As far as, there's a lot of things around here. You found out that there's another betrayal. It was just right in your face. And then you found out it's been going on for years. So I completely understand. I can't say this strongly enough. You're feeling violated, whether it's emotional. I have a term called emotional rape, emotional sexual abuse. You can say really nasty things to a person that are sexual. You can lie to them about. So that this was going on, and he asked to be or intended to be sexual with you while all this was going on. And by the way, did he want to be sexual with you to make you feel more comfortable or make you feel safer to him? Or what was his motivation? So I believe you're right. You wouldn't have consented if you were acting out. I will say this, though, that I think I'm absolutely certain that there are far too many therapists in my field who are accusing sex addicts of being offenders and rapists and all that stuff. And that's simply not true. We do not have those histories. That is 99% not who we are. Trust me, if I want to hurt you, I'll go act it with someone else. Well, that's not exactly direct. I do think we do manipulate you guys into sex for all various reasons, for none of them good ones, but that's very different than real perpetration. I believe that you feel that way, and I would feel that way too. But sexual assault is a very severe term, and I would look at that for what it is, because that's rape, basically, is what you're talking about. And I think you were manipulated. I think you were lied to. I think you were encouraged to be in a situation that was not safe for you. But I don't believe you were assaulted. I think that's a much more legal and violence related form of behavior. So I'm curious what you're going to do now. How are you going to take care of yourself? And by the way, ladies, I want to say to every one of you and the men who are having sex with sex addicts, get tested. I can't tell you, at Seeking Integrity, and I'm very sad, Tammy, you know this, I would say once a month, I have a spouse call and say, or I read a spouse's letter about what they've been through, and they say, I got HPV or I got chlamydia. I've had guys say, oh, no, I didn't give that to her. A spouse has never had sex with anyone else. And so, for us, the addicts, it's also humiliating, embarrassing, and Lord knows we want to be the last people who gave you that. But in the moment, we're not thinking about you at all, and not just your feelings, but also your body. So please, please, please go get tested for everything. You'll feel better about it. And by the way, if something comes up, I think that will be a very clear indication of relationship issues. So let's move on, Tammy.
Well, wait. I have a couple things to.
Sorry.
Yeah, please. No, it's okay. But so you were gaslit, you were manipulated. 100%. I'm curious to know why, what you thought you were seeing in him that would make it safe. What was he doing that made you perceive that he was safe to have sex? Like, just not getting caught for a while, would not be enough. So my point with all of this is, this, you've said this has been going on for a long time. So, and you're feeling broken. What action, is he willing to take to do things differently for you? We talk all the time about healthy, safe boundaries for you: physical, emotional, financial, spiritual. But, Dr. Rob, said it, we have a residential treatment program. He is an ideal candidate when this kind of stuff keeps happening. We have a residential treatment program. There is no more expert treatment program on the planet. We have guys literally come from all over the world. I was talking to 2 people in Europe, in the last couple of days, about, coming to our program because having the level of clinical expertise to not just stop the problematic behaviors, and that's really where I'm going, to not just stop the problematic behaviors, but address the underlying issues. Because to me, this feels like he hasn't had enough help, to stop the behaviors and address the issues. So he keeps going on a cycle where, okay, I've been really good, I haven't been caught, and then he manipulates you into into having sex, and then he gets caught, and then the whole cycle starts again. So healthy boundaries for you, a higher level of help for him. I can't encourage that enough. So then the next one, Dr. Rob, appears to be a 2-parter, so I'm going to read them together. Okay. I'm going through a second DDay in March, and this second DDay felt horrible and painful, but I feel like my feelings have completely changed. I'm not sure I love him anymore. Would you say this is temporary? Continue to have a relationship in a safe harbor? He's looking to do inpatient, and will that change my feelings? He now's really taking initiative in his recovery now that I've stopped caring. Also, we're looking at another program called Wholehearted by Tyler Patrick. We would love to do yours too. Can you possibly tell me the difference between your program and that one? Would like to do both theirs and yours. Yeah, I don't know Tyler Patrick. He is not a CSAT, so I don't know that program at all. So,
well, I looked it up, of course, while we're talking, and Wholehearted is at least wholehearted.org, and I'm not sure if that's what we're talking about. But Wholehearted is a program that's overseen and created by Gabor Mate. And I really am a huge fan of his work. I just think he's amazing. And it is a completely focused on the addictions. And I'm a huge fan of his. I think he is one of the leading voices. What was it? Hungry Ghost, right?
Yes.
I want to think that about the name. Anyway, Tammy will think of it. His books are great. His work is great. I admire him. I think, he would be one of the people that I would feel absolutely comfortable sending a client to. But there's a but coming, which is when I look at his work, it's addictions. It's addictions. And that means drugs and alcohol, gambling, gaming, sex. And I believe that you're dealing with a specific problem. You need to have a specific answer. And this is all, and I'm not trying to sell our program. You asked my question, I'm going to answer it. This is all we do. We do treat some men who have combined drug and alcohol problems, meaning they can't stop drinking and using because of sex, or they can't stop having sex because of their drinking and using. They're tied together. We see that as a fused issue. But with our work, if you're looking for help with gambling or gaming or eating or or any of the or video gaming, or we don't treat that. Tammy is glad, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. Tammy is glad, and we wholeheartedly offer referrals. And if you called me and you said, I have someone with this particular kind of problem, it's kind of like going, well, I think it's deeper than that, but it's kind of like going to a really deeply experienced general practitioner who's going to say, I have a great doctor. I've seen him for 20 years. He knows the answer to most questions, honestly. But when there's something specific, he says, I want you to go see the specialist. And in fact, Tammy knows I saw a doctor for many years, and they said, oh, you're fine. And then I went to see my new doctor who I've been seeing for a long time also. And he said, I think this is the problem. But he didn't say, I'm going to treat the problem. He said, I'm going to send you here. And so I am a huge, I don't want to say it again, I'm a huge fan of this man's work. I think his books are on a par with Brene Brown. I think in terms of in the realm of hungry ghosts is what it's called. I think his books are bar none in terms of a wholehearted and loving look at addicts in a completely different way than they've been looked at before. And if I was going for a specific issue, two things. One is, I think if you're going to have a specialty issue, you need to see a specialist. And the other issue is that as a sex addict, I will not talk about my issues in depth in a room full of people who are drug addicts and alcoholics. And we have to do group work. In my experience, that's how I set up a lot of our work. Group is important. The other men interacting with each other. I would never, even in my years and years, sit around and talk about my sex life and a bunch of alcoholics and drug addicts or gamblers, because unfortunately, we have the most painful one. We have the most embarrassing one. And by the way, if I'm in a room full of drug addicts and alcoholics and people and gamblers, they already know, and we all know that I'm the pervert. That's how they're going to look at me. So I need two things. I would want to refer you to some group or organization, doesn't have to be us, that specifically treats sex, porn, and love addiction and or with drugs. And I would also recommend that that they not be in mixed groups. So if this organization, for example, said, we have a large group for sex addicts, we have a large group for drug addicts and alcoholics, we have and they're all separate. They may do lectures together, but when they're doing their hard, difficult histories and work, they are separate. I would say, yeah. But I have seen far too many organizations and treatment centers that say they treat everything. And addiction is not addiction is addiction is addiction. It does, the underlying reasons we act out are similar. The underlying result of our acting out is similar. But when I want to talk about compulsive masturbation to porn, and I need to be in a room full of other people who have those kinds of problems. And so my answer to you is, I'm sure the work is wonderful. I would highly endorse it, but I would really want to investigate, is there specific and detailed expertise in sex addiction? And are there sex and porn addiction group therapy that is separate? And Tammy knows I've been saying this lately, but I'm going to retire in a couple of years. I really want to have a part of my life that is other than this. I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I'm going to see people only for so much longer. And so if you want me involved, and I'm involved with every case, both overseeing and seeing the clients regularly, come visit us. Not that I'm the best person in the world, but I seem to have done a little bit of this work. You're here. So anyway, Tammy, I've talked far too long. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was thinking, I often hear people that are contacting us where things didn't go well, and it's like they did things in an order, like somebody can't show up for really doing deeper work if they're still lying to themselves and everyone else. We talk about timing for couples work, but doing couples work is down the road a bit when somebody has a foundation. So getting a solid foundation on on the sex addiction components, is what we do. And as Dr. Rob said, that's the only work that we do. And it's it's only men, so it is very gender specific. We have a family specialist that is working with, partners and spouses, but please, so I would invite you to reach out to me, Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity. But on our website on Seeking Integrity, we have why expertise matters. There's a document about it. We have information about length of treatment. We are Seeking Integrity, we try to be very transparent about, all aspects, of this. But, we've got alumni groups that meet every week. Guys all over the world are, staying connected to the staff, including Dr. Rob, because that's the journey. This is a journey. And so, so to me, yes, I do very much appreciate Gabor Mate's, work, but to me, it would be do the sex addiction work first, and then do some,
more general.
Yeah.
I wanted to add two things, which is, it isn't just me, as wonderful as I am. Every one of our staff is trained, educated, and focused on this, whether they're CSATs or on their way to becoming CSATs, or they're all. So what do you want to do? You want to look for people who are experts, not just the person who's overseeing the program, but who are the people actually seeing on a day-to-day basis your spouse? Are they trained to do this work? Do they understand the specifics of it? What is the team focused on? We recognize gambling addiction, but we would pull in an expert. We would send them to, we don't. So I think it's not just the person who has the name. Although it's better, if Dr. Mate were working with the clients on a regular basis, that would be a big plus for me. The other thing in town, we didn't mention this, is how are the spouses seen? I have worked very hard, and it is growing and growing and growing to have a much more positive, encouraging, strength-based view of spouses and partners than codependency has brought us. And as some of you know, it's called prodependence. And goodness, we get calls now every day about it. I'm so grateful. Because people are looking for a more validating and affirming way to look at loving family members, other than asking them to look at what their problems are. So one of the things I'd be very curious about as a spouse is, how will I be looked at? And what will be the view of me? And will you be looking to support me and cheer for all the hard work I'm doing here? Or are you going to ask me to explore my own problems? Because I think that is not helpful in a lot of ways, especially in the beginning. So there you go.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. Hi, Dr. Rob and Tammy. In everyday life, if a situation occurs, I can deal with it. My father died in my arms, and I essentially had to direct traffic with other family members, as I was the only one who remained calm. I don't have the same calmness when there is a reveal to my wife. Example, today I found something that I had hidden from last year, and I honestly did not remember it. When I found it, I went straight into panic mode and could not think straight. And instead of immediately telling my wife, or even doing the somewhat intelligent thing of getting rid of my wife discovered it, and we had an argument, knowing full well that if I can stay in the moment for something as devastating as my father dying, is there a cause and effect kind of emotional struggle going on in my head that makes me an idiot, and I shut down, unable to think or process what's going on?
Well, first of all, I don't think any of us are idiots.
I agree.
I don't think we're bad people. I don't think we're idiots. Idiots and bad people don't show up for experiences like this and try to grow. I think you feel bad about yourself. I think you're angry at yourself. I think you might have done something that is idiotic, but I don't like, when we attack ourselves, that doesn't improve our circumstances. We have to come to peace with ourselves. And so just in general, I would ask all of you addicts, no matter how angry your spouses are, to find some compassion for your problem. The other thing, as I go along, is I've been very strong in many situations in my life for myself and other people. My mom died in my arms. I've had many people in incredibly difficult circumstances that I've been able to stand up for. But that doesn't mean it runs across all situations and all circumstances. I would like to think that my strengths are across the board, but as Tammy well knows, and we have strengths and vulnerabilities. And by the way, some of the things that work really well in some situations do not work well in others. A lot of the men I work with, for example, have been incredible, not all of them, but some of them have been incredibly successful in the outside world with money or business or whatever, but bring them into an intimate relationship and they're clueless. So I think of the word Swiss cheese, which are, have little holes. And I think our strengths can be kind of like that. Here we're really solid and here we're really not. So the other thing, and I don't know if this is what this person's saying, is that it's pretty universal that many of us have difficulty with confrontation and conflict from the people we love. We kind of get past the I want to be adored all the time and everything, but it is very hard for us, for various reasons, to have someone come to us with that angry face and say, what did you do? And it is absolutely, despite our best intentions, near automatic for some of us to lie and diminish And my goal is, of course, to say, well, you may do that, but come back and tell the truth, 24 hours or whatever that is. So I'm not sure if this is, Tammy, how you would look at it, but I think there's kind of a universal belief this person is trying to hold on to in issues that are not universal. One of the I could hold someone when they're dying, and I may not, and when I have someone who loves me who's angry, I may lie. They're just completely different brain circumstances. Just like I can be brilliant at work and be and act like an idiot in my relationships. So Tammy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was thinking, so first of all, because or doing a somewhat intelligent thing of getting rid of it. And like, I can guarantee that would only be like a half a step behind, running. I mean, so here's the deal, this is going to happen again. Have a plan. This feels like I didn't have a plan for when I find something,
Right.
And so, but if you have a plan, I'm going to call my therapist. I'm going to call my sponsor. I mean, your sponsor, I just found something I need to, so then when, because running to your spouse, oh my gosh, that can be traumatizing too. So having the conversation perhaps with your spouse of like, this may happen again. I'm going to work on doing it better. This is my plan. I'm going to call my sponsor. I'm going to talk it through, and then I'm going to bring it to you in a way that like is agreed upon with the spouse. So it's not like in the middle of, her hectic day and she's, frazzled, and you come running to her with stuff that she gets hit with, I often call it vomit disclosures when it's like coming at you, like, is there, maybe it's like, I have found some more information that I need to disclose. I think it would be best to have us do it with our couples therapist. Is that agreed upon? Okay. So then there's a plan, but get a plan. But I agree with Dr. Rob. We can do, and I still do it. Like I'll go, I'll use idiot, I'll call myself an idiot or whatever. And I know where the voice came from. And so now I have identified it and I go, no, you're not. That was not your best choice. That behavior wasn't great, whatever. I have to talk myself through it. I can choose differently. I can choose better. But it doesn't make me an idiot. Some days I choose better than others. And, but here's what I love. I have a program of recovery that gives me opportunities to make amends and move forward, doing things differently. So I'm going to go back to get a plan. This will happen again. Something else
Right.
will pop up. Have a plan that your spouse agrees to. When something happens, I don't want it to be that you discover it or I'm lying or that how can we navigate this that's going to be a safe way for you and that's a safe way for me to bring it to you.
And I want to bring Tammy into the room. I want to channel Tammy because she didn't mention it. Where is the 12-step program here? Where is the sponsor? Where is the person that you turn to? Where are your meetings? Where is the therapist? Where, I hear you saying I should have done this and why didn't I do that? In my life in recovery, I don't worry about that because when I'm confused about something, I have people to call and say, I'm not sure what to do. Can you help me? And, I went into panic mode and couldn't think straight. Great. I completely get it. What did you do? Tammy said, do you have a plan? Meaning who, where, what? We make mistakes, but I can go to, we don't know what to do, but that's the whole, if there are many situations, my father dying, I know what to do. But if I knew how to figure this one out, we wouldn't be sitting here. I also read, and I kind of bugs me. I went into panic mode and I could not think straight. That's not an excuse. That may be an observation, but if you find yourself going into panic mode and losing the ability to think, what are you going to do? It isn't okay to just say, oh my goodness, I went into panic mode and I didn't know what to do. I'm sorry that happened. But as Tammy said, what is your plan when that happens? And one more thing, those of you who think about and have a desire to get a sponsor, get a therapist, and you want to reach out to them when you're in a panic, that doesn't work. You have to have a regular relationship with these people. I have to call the people who support me a few times a week because the last thing I'm going to want to do is call them when I'm in trouble. And so I have to build a relationship of support and a consistency so that when the trouble comes, I can just walk right in there and take the steps that I'm used to taking. You were a good team, Tammy. I think we aligned pretty well. I like that.
Well, so funny that look down at the questions. Husband said, this is I think a different one, but husband says he doesn't want to reach out to his group or sponsor because everyone tells him he's wrong.
Well, maybe he is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's what, yeah, but yeah, so that's somebody who's stuck and
Poor baby.
we'll continue to do the same thing
And why
over
is he
and over
complaining to you
again.
about it? That's not your
Well,
problem.
I don't
That's
know
a
if this
little
is like
whiny, like poor me. I can't
exactly.
find
Well,
anyone
this
to identify with.
mhm.
I hear this too, Tammy. You do a lot. I just heard this the other day. I went to a couple of those meetings, but all those people were much sicker than me, so I don't belong there. If we don't want to be somewhere, we're going to look for the reasons not to be there. I ask us, and Tammy would agree, to look for the similarities rather than
Yes.
differences. I want to listen to the person who's lost this relationship, who has lost their job, who I'm not necessarily going to want to talk to the person who has done some things that I haven't done. But I do see people walk into a room and say, oh, I don't belong here because these people don't agree with me, or they're not on my side, or I don't like what they're saying, and the goal is to stay. We have a saying, put your body in the chair and the rest will follow. I don't care whether you want to be there or not. You got to show up. If I want to improve my body, I don't necessarily want to go to the gym, but I go because it's healthy for me. And if I don't, it's not. So, you put your body in the, you put your body in the, whatever you call it, and you get better. But you can go to the gym and whine and say, I don't want to do this work. And guess what? You're not going to get better. So we have every reason not to go and not work on this and to avoid it. But that's not going to get you better. It's not going to heal your relationships.
Well, and that's where I want to. So if he is, you've got no control over him and what he does or doesn't do, but you can have healthy boundaries for you so that, okay, he's choosing to do that, that will probably cause a bigger distance between the two of us. And we will not, you are not going to be safe if you're not going to go to the group and get the feedback that you're wrong. So you're going to do what is wrong, like despite negative consequences to me and to our relationship. Well, that's not just immature, but it's also not going to help the relationship heal or grow. So at some point he can, the king baby comes back to mind. I want to do what I want to do. I don't care what anybody else tells me, or so you're kind of stuck. If he's going to do that, then what do you need to do to take care of you, despite the fact that he's, not willing to really engage in recovery work? So I know you got to go.
Tammy,
So
one
yes,
quick aside.
yes,
My glass matches what you're wearing perfectly. And I don't know why, but I felt the need to say that. You see that? Like, it's
I
perfect.
appreciate
So
that.
we must have planned that. I am waiting for a text. So from a doctor, unfortunately. So I
We're
can
out of
keep going until
well, we're
that
out of
happens.
questions, so I'm gonna let you go so that you're
Okay.
prepared. But we got
Hey,
all the
all
questions
39 of
done.
you,
So
there's an awful lot of free stuff that we give away. Almost 1 million people have downloaded my podcast. Listen to it. We make
no,
no money.
almost
It's free.
1.3 million, way more than 1 million, almost 1.3. I was looking a week or so ago, so it's getting close to 1.3 million
But
have.
that's because people want answers and they want good
Yes,
content and they want their spouses to listen to it. We get nothing for this. I'm just really
no,
encouraging you to take advantage of the resources that are free, because we offer all these groups. Anyway, I don't need to get into it. Thank you,
yes.
Tammy, for your time.
Bye.
Y'all have a
Thanks,
good evening.
everybody.
Bye for now.